Greg Fergus, the Speaker of Canada's House of Commons, is under intense political pressure following criticism of his performance in office. More than 100,000 citizens have signed a petition demanding his immediate resignation, accusing him of blatant bias and acting as a political protector of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. This controversy has called into question the neutrality of Parliament and sparked a national debate on freedom of expression in the political sphere. The final straw was Fergus's decision to expel Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party, for refusing to withdraw his comments on government-driven drug decriminalization policies in British Columbia. This incident not only ignited public outrage, but also evidenced a growing political polarization in the country. Pierre Poilievre, known for his blunt style and willingness to challenge the government, openly criticized Trudeau's policies as radical and extremist. These statements were deemed inappropriate by Fergus, who demanded a retraction. When Poilievre refused, Fergus expelled him from the chamber, which many interpreted as an attempt to censor criticism of the Prime Minister. The decision has sparked accusations that Fergus has turned his role as a neutral arbiter into a position of political censure in the service of the Liberal Party. In addition, his record of silencing other members of the opposition has reinforced the perception that he is not living up to the democratic principles he should be defending. The decriminalization of drugs in British Columbia is one of the most contentious issues in the country. With an average of 6 overdose deaths a day and hospitals grappling with critical conditions, many Canadians consider these policies to have failed miserably. Poilievre's criticism of this strategy reflects the frustration of a public that feels the government is not prioritizing their well-being. In this context, Fergus has been singled out for using his power to prevent these discussions from reaching Parliament, protecting Trudeau from attacks from the opposition. This pattern of behavior has led to a loss of public confidence in his leadership and in the impartiality of Parliament in general. Fergus's role has been particularly questioned because the Speaker is expected to be a champion of democracy and fair debate. However, his recent actions have given the impression that he is more interested in safeguarding Trudeau's image than in allowing an open dialogue on important issues. Rachel Thomas, another Conservative MP, was also expelled by Fergus after calling him a disgrace. These decisions have sparked a national debate about the state of Canadian democracy and the role of censorship in the current government. Meanwhile, Justin Trudeau is facing growing public disapproval. His history of scandals, combined with a cost of living crisis affecting millions of Canadians, has eroded his popularity. Trudeau, once seen as a progressive and visionary leader, now faces criticism both inside and outside his party. The perception that he is using his influence to protect Fergus has further aggravated the situation, fueling accusations that his government is more interested in avoiding scrutiny than solving the country's real problems. The economic situation in Canada is another point of tension. Prices of basic goods have risen by 15% under Trudeau's government, leaving many families struggling to meet their essential needs. This crisis has generated massive discontent that Poilievre has been able to capitalize on, positioning himself as a solid alternative to the Liberal leadership. His message resonates with a public that is tired of what they perceive as a government disconnected from the daily concerns of citizens. The impact of this controversy transcends Canada's borders. On the international stage, the country has gone from being a model of democracy and freedom of expression to being compared to authoritarian regimes. This perception has damaged Canada's reputation, affecting its image as a global leader in human rights and transparent governance. For many, Fergus's actions and Trudeau's lack of effective response are a reflection of a government that has lost its way. In this climate of discontent, public protests have intensified. In front of the offices of deputies and in the streets, ordinary citizens have begun to demand changes in the country's political leadership. These demonstrations are not the work of traditional activist groups, but of Canadians who are not usually involved in politics but now feel that their voices are being ignored. The hashtag has number FERGUSDEBERENUNCIAR become a trend on social networks, showing a wave of frustration that grows every day. Despite Fergus's attempts to silence Poilievre, the Conservative leader has taken to social media to amplify his message. His criticism of Trudeau's policies and his advocacy of open and honest discourse have resonated with an audience looking for leaders willing to take on the country's challenges. Poilievre, while not without criticism, has managed to position himself as a credible voice of opposition at a time of deep political dissatisfaction. The damage to public trust in Parliament and Trudeau's government could have lasting repercussions. More and more Canadians feel that their rights are being eroded, and this perception is fueling a movement demanding structural reforms in the way power is handled in Canada. Fergus, as a central figure in this controversy, faces increasing pressure to resign, as Trudeau struggles to contain widespread discontent. The story of Greg Fergus and his alleged abuse of power is a symptom of a larger problem in Canada's political leadership. The crisis of confidence in democratic institutions and growing public discontent are clear signs that the country is at a turning point. Fergus and Trudeau's future depends on their ability to address these concerns in meaningful ways, although many already consider the damage done. The growing discontent with Greg Fergus is not just a reflection of his individual performance, but of a broader perception that Justin Trudeau's government has lost connection with the needs and expectations of the Canadian people. Fergus, as Speaker of the House of Commons, represents what many consider to be a crisis of leadership in democratic institutions. His actions have not only fueled criticism of his impartiality, but have also exposed a parliamentary structure that some consider deeply unbalanced in favor of the ruling party. This discontent, which began with specific political sectors, has transcended ideologies and now includes citizens of different backgrounds and political beliefs. Fergus's role as Trudeau's protector has led many to see him as a symbol of the growing disconnect between the government and ordinary citizens. Criticism of his decisions has opened a debate about the power and independence of the Speaker of the House, questioning whether his position can be truly neutral in such a polarized context. Fergus not only faces accusations of censorship, but also of having transformed Parliament into a space where criticism of the government is constantly repressed. This not only affects the opposition, but also public confidence in the legitimacy of the democratic process. Meanwhile, the situation in British Columbia, one of the main reasons for criticism of Trudeau and Fergus, continues to deteriorate. Drug decriminalization, a policy that sought to reduce the impact of criminalization, has become a focus of national controversy. Hospitals and communities are facing an alarming increase in overdoses, while families and essential workers feel the government has failed to protect them. This crisis has become a symbol of the perceived failure of the Liberal government, and Fergus, by blocking debate on this issue, has intensified the frustration of those demanding real solutions. Pierre Poilievre, for his part, has used these failures as a key point in his political narrative. His criticism of Trudeau and Fergus's policies is not only aimed at the Conservative public, but also at swing voters seeking a change in leadership. Poilievre has stressed that Parliament should be a place for open debates and concrete solutions, not to shield leaders from criticism. His direct message has resonated with many Canadians who feel their concerns are being ignored by a government more interested in managing its image than solving pressing problems.